Hi, this is Gianmarc Manzione for ActionBowlers.com. I'm thrilled to be working with AC Butch on our audio narrative of action bowling history. And to get things started, I want to tell you a little bit about who I am and how I came to fall in love with the amazing stories of action bowling's colorful past. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and by the time I got into bowling there, I started to hear stories about the legends that still lingered in bowling alleys all over the area. Names like Johnny Petraglia, Richie Hornreich, and Mark Roth would get tossed around now and then, and I could tell from the looks in the eyes of people who talked about them that there was a lot more to these guys than a name. In pro shops around town, I would see memorabilia like bowling balls with Mark Roth's signature on them, and I would stand and stare at it as if I had just discovered the signature of God. I was just in awe, and I didn't even entirely know why back then. I was just a kid, but I just had this nagging impression that something very big had happened there long before I came around, and the more time went on, the more I wanted to know about it. So later on, bowling took a back seat to a love of reading and writing, but my love of the game stayed with me, and one day it occurred to me that I could combine these two passions by going back and finding the guys I used to hear stories about back when I was a kid, and telling their tales. So in 2009, I embarked on a furious search for as many of these legends as I could track down. Thanks to rumors of their whereabouts on ActionBowlers.com and the white pages, I was able to find these guys all over the place. I found and spoke with Dewey Blair by calling the bowling alley where he still bowled league. I met and struck up a friendship with Ernie Schlegel, and he put me in touch with guys like Mike Lemongello and Kenny Barber, both of whom I interviewed for several hours. I interviewed Johnny Petraglia, and later I tracked down Richie Hornreich in Bensonhurst, a working-class Italian section of Brooklyn where I was born, and listened to his amazing stories over the phone. Later I spoke with guys like Mike McGrath, Barry Asher, the list goes on and on. Then I found Jeff Kidder out in South Carolina. I had seen something on ActionBowlers.com about how he was living out there, so I looked him up in the white pages and I called, and to my astonishment, Jeff answered the phone and he was really generous with his time. I interviewed him for several hours as well. You can find my story about Jeff on ActionBowlers.com actually. It's called Memory Lane, Back in Central with Jeff Kidder. When I lived in Tampa, Florida, I made the trip down to Larry Lichstein's pro shop in Cape Coral, and I listened to his stories for hours as well. I just sat there and listened in complete awe of Larry. What a character. And I also tracked down lesser-known guys who played bit roles in the scene but who have amazing stories to tell. So now I'm working on a book that will have many action bowling stories in it. I've been slaving over it for several years, and my ardent hope is that somehow I'll be able to tell these stories well enough for them to appeal to a mainstream publisher who can help this stuff get the attention it so richly deserves, because I think that's the least I can do to preserve these memories. And that's basically it. I'm just a kid from Brooklyn who grew up in the distant aftermath of action bowling history and took up the challenge of piecing that history together again as much as I could. I hope you enjoy the stories Butch and I have to share with you.